Hi everyone, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gareth Hall and CEO of Lifestyle Financial Services, and I thought this time of isolation and COVID-19 and all of that stuff that it would be good for us to have some sessions on lifestyle, all the things that we enjoy. And for those of you that do know me, you'll know that I enjoy Mudgee, my time up there, and I spend a lot of time in Mudgee. And one of the people that I've had the pleasure of meeting while I've been here is David Lowe. Now, David Lowe is the owner of Lowe Wines and the chief winemaker here. So I thought it would be good to take this opportunity to have a chat to him about how wine's made and about all things wine, because as much as I love drinking wine, I don't know all that much about it. So I thought this would be a great opportunity. So David, shall we start with that?
Well, hello lifestyle people, hello fellow lifestyle people. Well, I think the number one question I get is from people about, we know about wine, we love wine, but how is wine made? And it's really is a combination of using the grapes that we grow from Vitis vinifera and the fruit that yields, which are grape berries, and how we turn the grape berries, which is the source of sugar, into wine. The process really is about milling the fruit or harvesting the grapes, crushing the grapes, releasing the grape sugar, and that grape sugar is then attacked by yeast, and yeast convert the sugar to alcohol. They do so, about 50% goes to alcohol and about 50% goes to carbon dioxide. Winemakers often use, the measurement we use for alcohol is percent alcohol, and the measurement for sugar is called Baumé. Now, Baumé is a French word which really refers to the potential alcohol. Without being too complicated, the sweeter the grapes, the riper the fruit is, the more alcohol is produced, because the alcohol turns that sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So if we harvest grapes at 10 Baumé, which is the scale we use, you would reasonably expect, if all of the sugar has been converted to alcohol, the wine would be left at 10% alcohol. Equally, grapes that are ripened to 15 Baumé, which is really sweet, will make you 15% alcohol. And that's a wine of very high alcohol, very high concentration. So wine is really the product of fermented grapes, and it produces alcohol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is liberated over time. So it's very gassy when it's first made, just like a freshly brewed beer or ginger beer or soda water, but over time that gas is liberated, so the wine becomes still, that is, no residual carbon dioxide. That is the principle of winemaking.
So, even though the grapes might be sweet, it doesn't necessarily mean that you end up with a sweet wine, because that interaction eats up most of the sugar. Is that?
That's right. So
yeah.
As winemakers, we control the rate of fermentation of the yeast. So the yeast convert, as I said, to alcohol and carbon dioxide, and they do so, they give off temperature. So we can manage that fermentation process. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks to go in a fermentation in a winery. We manage that by temperature. We slow the yeast down so their activity is a bit muted. They produce a lesser rate of alcohol. However, when you see a sweet wine, that means that the fermentation has stopped. So the winemaker has decided to stop the fermentation. So what you've got left is some sugar that's left in the wine and some of the alcohol that's been formed during that process. So you can at any stage interfere in the process and stop the yeast from completing their process. So sweet wines will have maybe less alcohol than they would have had potentially, but more sugar. And then we get into sweet wines, which we can talk in another series. If you love what we do and you give us feedback, we're happy to keep talking about this in these days when you're stuck in a cabinet.
Thanks, David. So I was in Woolies the other day and there was no yeast. So I presume it's not baker's yeast that you use in the wine fermentation process. What sort of yeast?
Well, it's exactly the same. So the yeast that we make in bread is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. That's the technical name. It's the same yeast we use in wine. The reason we use it in bread is, of course, the yeast attacks the sugar that's in the dough and makes it rise. It's the carbon dioxide that gives off the rising of the bread. Also, they don't tell you this, but there's a little bit of alcohol in bread, because if there is sugar in the dough and the bread rises, it will produce a little bit of alcohol, by the way. No one's ever bothered to talk about that. So the same yeast in bread is the same yeast in wine or in beer or in cider or in Perrier or anything like that. The difference being that people are chasing the yeast in supermarkets, in Woolies, for example, or Coles. They're chasing it because they may want to make their own bread at home, or they may want to make their own alcoholic beverages at home as well. That's pretty common in these sort of circumstances.
Never knew why I like bread as much as I do. Anyway, barrels. We've got a beautiful barrel behind us.
So, by the way, a lot of this information that we're talking about, I've also been conducting twice a week small social media videos. I call it One Take Dave. And you'll find them on our social media with Lowe Wine, Lowe Family Wine Company, or David Lowe. And we give to more detail about things that you may not have get the information from today. But back to your question, Gareth, barrels like that, they're generally made from white oak. Oak is not indigenous to Australia. Oak is usually in Europe or the Americas. And that white oak makes an excellent barrel to store wine into. The barrels, the wood is ideal because it's soft, it's malleable, and you can bend it. These barrels have got bended hoops and bended staves on them, and they are allowed to be put into a formation so that you can hold wine. So that's full. That's 4,500 litres or 1,000 gallons. So 4.5 litres to a gallon. So 1,000 gallons is 4.5 litres. There's an interesting number about this too. If you divide gallons by 2, so that's 1,000 gallons, you'll get 500 dozen bottles of wine. Interesting number. So if you see a barrel that's 100 gallons, you know you get 50 dozen bottles of wine out of that, unless you drink it on the way. Right? So why do we put it in the barrel? Well, a barrel does two things. It softens the wine by slow oxidation. So oxidation is also rust, but oxidation in wine softens the wine from having a wine of brutality and strength. That the oxidation, which is very slow, softens the wine so it's more user-friendly. Now, too much oxidation, if you left the bottle half full or the barrel half full, that wine will, what we call oxidise, or go off. But small amount of oxygen, that occurs through the barrels themselves. Through the wood, air moves in and out of those barrels and it softens the wine. So that wine gets substantially different over the period of time. That's one difference. The second difference is the layer, a coating of the oak, which is called cystone vanille, is one of the compounds. That's extracted very slowly, very minutely into the wine. So the wine changes from being a fruity, young, grapey wine to something with more character and complexity. That's the fun bit of wine that Gareth and I love when we drink wine, is talk about wines that are better than anything else because they change in form. That's part of the fun, the charm and the art of winemaking.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't mention was that David's winery is organic and biodynamic, which is probably what attracted me to come here in the first place because, well, particularly my wife, if she can have anything organic, she'll have it organic as a preference. And also I think you get less headaches, right, if you drink organic, and it's naturally lower in preservatives too, right? Organic
yeah, well,
wine.
what it was, not so much naturally, it's what to be certified, which is part of the process, you have to have less preservatives. So they do monitor and they check, and there's an audit, an annual audit. So they check any wine at random and ask you to prove with NATA testing laboratory properly analysis that the wine is lower in preservatives. So organic wine is about 50% lower in preservatives than any other conventional wine. That's a good start. I'm an asthmatic, I'm allergic to sulphur. We make some preservative-free wine, but all of our organic wines are very low in sulphur. So that's another comfort. I can't say it's a health drink, but effectively,
absolutely a health drink.
We've got a very defined audience here, lifestyle audience.
That's right. Yeah. So one question I've always wanted to ask: how long with these Stelvin caps now? That's what they're called, is it? Stelvin? Yeah. How long can you keep a bottle of wine after you've opened it?
Now we're going back to the argument about oxygen. And of course, as I said, oxygen can do good things to wine, it can do terrible things to wine. If a wine was capped with only this much in it, a lot of air, that wine will age very quickly and oxidise very quickly. The point about a screw cap is it's a hermetic seal. It lets no air in and no air out. If it had to leak air, like a cork, it would leak, like that. So what we do with the hermetic seal of the screw cap, it actually seals that wine or cryovacs it for a long, long time. So the old rule about cheap wine, and when I was a very young winemaker, we didn't have such inventions. These type of caps were for flagons and they were just a bad seal. Now they're technically a very good seal, so they trap any oxygen that's in there. It's called Henry's law of partial pressures if anyone's scientifically minded. It traps any air in there, so the aging is only able to be occurring with the air that's in that point there. A cork, on the other hand, will have some cork and some air leakage through it. So it does in fact change the wine with a bit of air, and a good cork is ideal, but a bad cork is bad. So a screw cap, or Stelvin's a brand name, but a screw cap has been an absolute godsend to the Australian wine industry, because what it's done is it's made all of our wines consistent. We haven't had to rely on bad corks, and we've also kept our wine fresher for longer. And the other benefit, of course, is you can leave them standing up. With a cork, you've got to leave it on its side. If there's more time and another time, if Gareth chooses to have us back, I'll explain why the very, very best corks in the world do make a difference. But you've got to be paying 10 to 15 times more for a seal for a cork than there is for a screw cap. So for the moment, it's great, and you can also put it back in the fridge. A wine like this, a young white wine, which is my Dragonfly White, we can take a glass out, put it back in the fridge, probably 4 or 5 days later, that'll still be fresh. That's often a question I get as well. Serve it, put it back in the fridge, cap back on it, more than half full, 4 to 5 days, no problem, it's not going to be off. Leave it out in the sun, a matter of hours, it won't be as good as it was when you first opened it.
So I noticed you poured yourself oh, thank you, mate. My next question was going to be, do you have any special offers for us?
Yes, so what we've been doing in these times is we've been saying it's very hard to come and taste wine here. The charm of this place, we might get a lot of people come and taste the wine and get some instruction from myself or Kesh, who works with us. What we are offering now is an opportunity to buy wine in 6-packs. So we have 3 different 6-packs, all for $150, and they really chart the sort of wines that we make, from light whites, organic whites, to preservative-free reds, to full-bodied reds. And we have options 1, 2 and 3 in 6-packs, 3 and 4 and 5, even 6 bottles of different wines in these 6-packs. Best way to find out is to look on our website, lowewine.com.au, and there's a number of options. Go to the special packs that we have. And they probably will give you a good introduction idea, a starter pack if you like. There's 6 good reasons, there's 6 nights of drinking there. Well, if you've got you can only have 2, can't you? This is why we're social distancing. 2 bottles a night, that's for 2 people. And we've also got this wine with some freshly oysters we picked up yesterday from the Sydney fish markets. So we're offering these as well with this wine called Dragonfly White, which we think is a nice aromatic wine to go with the shellfish. We're also going to do some talking about food in another minute, and we'll talk to you about with our chef from the Zinn House about how we do some simple food at home if you're interested. And we might have a glass of wine while we watch that.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Oyster.
Thank you.